Okay, what are some of the steps you have to go through to be evaluated and approved as a donor? For me, the first step was filling out an online form at the Mayo Clinic saying I was interested in donating to my recipient and answering some basic health questions, blood type, that sort of thing, so they could do the initial screening to see if I was disqualified from donation for any reason. And then the nurse at Mayo, who's going through all of the interest forms, was calling each person to go over like risks of donation, what does it mean, health history, making sure they're still interested in becoming a donor. And for everybody who was still interested, they were mailing out a little blood draw kit so they could do some initial evaluation based on that, like a little pre-screener before they schedule anybody for the in-person evaluation. And the blood draw kit is a styrofoam box, has a ice pack in there that you can freeze overnight, the night before you go to your blood draw, and it has all the vials that they need, and then the lab overnights it back to the Mayo Clinic for analysis. And it was during the phone conversation with the nurse coordinator that I really started putting forward myself as being a really invested candidate, interested in helping this process go through more quickly and being the donor myself. I talked to them about timeline, how long each step was taking, how quickly we needed the surgery to happen for my recipient. And because I had that conversation with them and I was advocating for myself to be the donor, they really started focusing on me more as the primary candidate that they were evaluating. So they overnighted the blood draw kit to me instead of sending it through the standard mail. And then I think I might have possibly been the first person to get mine returned to Mayo. I'm not quite sure about that. But they are looking for somebody who is dedicated to being the donor. So because I was so invested, they really did start focusing on me. And it's really important as the person who's donating to advocate for yourself. The recipient can't do that at all because they really can't pressure anybody to be their donor. So it's really on the person who's interested in donating to advocate for themselves. So once I passed the blood draw stage, all my labs looked fine. They called to schedule me for an in-person evaluation, and it was scheduled for the second week of October. And if you get all your appointments back to back, you can do it in about 3 days. For me, I couldn't get my MRI until Friday, so it took me 5, which was fine. I just was able to hang out in Rochester a little bit more and explore the city. So some of the things that you do, and I'm sure each hospital might be slightly different, but it should be mostly the same. You have blood draws again, so they can check your various levels. They gave me a urine test and a TB test. The donor coordinator met with me to explain the schedule and information about donation. She took my blood pressure and my height and weight, basic things. I had a couple medical checks, like a chest x-ray and an echocardiogram, an electrocardiogram, an ultrasound with contrast, and an MRI. And the MRI is really important to see the volume of each lobe of your liver, and that's a key component in determining whether your liver is a suitable transplant size and shape for your recipient. And then I also met with different individuals, so a psychologist to kind of talk about my mental health history, a social worker to talk about my support system and my financial stability and the reasons why I want to donate. Everybody was making sure I wasn't being pressured in any way to be the donor. A living donor advocate met with me, transplant financial services to talk about any potential expenses that could arise through the process, and there's a source of financial help for donors if you need some financial help in order to donate. The physician's assistant met with me to talk about what the surgery was going to be like, and that PA was very involved throughout the entire transplant process. She did a lot of my early morning checkups, like in the hospital, and some of my aftercare things. So she was a really key person, like for me on my team. I met with a hepatologist and also the head surgeon. And then after you do all of your appointments, on Tuesday mornings at Mayo, that's when everybody on the team meets together to talk about potential donors and to see if everybody agrees that they're a suitable candidate, and they try to like vote and have 100% consensus that this person is a good donor candidate. And so once they voted that I was an appropriate donor, they gave me a call that afternoon to let me know. And then I was actually able to schedule the surgery date with that person, talking about when was a good time for surgery, which of course they said as soon as possible. So that was really cool. I had the surgery date at the end of that conversation, and I was able to tell the rest of the family when it was going to be. So that was the process for being evaluated to be a donor.